Hi, everybody. Welcome officially. My name is Hayla Alawi, and on behalf of Atmosphere Press, I am so pleased to welcome you to today's live author reading of children's literature. Today, we're going to be hearing from Alan Champlin, author of Harry the High versus Larry the Low, which was released on March 18th. Janice E. Collins, author of Sydney, Bean, and the Missing Gloves, released on January 28th. And AnneMarie Mazotti Gouveia, author of Brave Falls, Drifter's Realm Book 3, released on February 11th. All three authors' books can be purchased from online retailers and from select bookstores. And of course, the books can be found on Atmosphere Press's website. That's at atmospherepress.com/books. I'm also just going to put some links to each book in the chat so you can easily check each one out. At the end of today's reading, we're also going to have time for audience questions. So during the readings, if you have a question for one or more of our authors, you can just type those in the chat and I will make sure they get asked. Please do stay muted for the duration of the event, but feel free to use the chat for praise and comments in addition to questions. One last note is that we at Atmosphere Press appreciate your support today and always. If you have a manuscript of your own, we would love to read it, so submit your work today to books@atmospherepress.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to support Alan, Janice, and AnneMarie today. I'm particularly excited because all three readings during this event are going to feature screen share elements since they all feature these really beautiful illustrations we want the audience to be able to experience. So with all of that being said, I'm so excited to start with our first reader, who is Alan Champlin. At a young age, Alan joined the United States Air Force and was placed in the weather career field. After only a year serving as a weather observer at Eglin AFB in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, he was selected to be one of the first airmen, E3, to attend the weather technician course for weather forecasting at Chanute AFB in Illinois. After serving honorably, Alan founded Weather One Corps with his best friend Mike, and Weather One became one of the largest providers of aviation weather observers in the nation. As a prime contractor for the NWS and the FAA, Weather One provided service at over 50 airports. Their company was responsible for bringing the ASOS Automated Surface Observation System online at the first commissioned location in Concordia, Kansas in 1995. Alan has two daughters, one son, and one granddaughter. He has coached basketball and softball teams, as well as worked at the concession stand to help his children in their endeavors. And now Alan is here to read from his children's book, Harry the High versus Larry the Low, which shows us the power of our words, the impact of bullying, and that the things we want aren't always the things we need. So join Harry and Larry as they realize the best kinds of solutions include everyone. So I'm going to begin screen sharing Alan's book. And with that being said, let's welcome Alan.
Hi, thank you, Ayla, for the introduction. I certainly appreciate it. And I'll go ahead and begin reading Harry the High versus Larry the Low. This is possibly the most beautiful day ever. Children are laughing and playing all around. Lots of parents are enjoying it too by swimming or lounging at the pool. Who on earth could make such a beautiful day? Well, it's Harry the High. That's the guy. But wait, on the horizon, the beauty is fading away. Dark clouds are rolling in quickly, and the daylight seems to be disappearing. Heavy rain is pouring while thunder and lightning shake the ground. People are rushing to seek cover from the storm. Large hailstones and violent winds are destroying things all around. Who on earth could ruin such a beautiful day? Well, it's Larry the Low. That's just his way. Harry has seen enough. He's circling back and answering Larry's attack, pushing Larry straight out of town. By ushering in blue skies and sunshine, Harry is working hard to fix what Larry's terrible weather tore down. While observing the mess Larry has brought, Harry's anger begins with a frown as he shouts, "Larry, you really suck. There's not one good thing about you. Nobody likes you. You should just disappear forever." Larry is confused and very hurt by Harry's words. Larry doesn't mean to hurt or even ruin anyone's day, but it seems that is exactly what he often does. Larry begins to believe that Harry is right, that he really does suck, and that nobody likes him. He is very sad, so he decides he will leave, so he flees far, far away. Larry has now been gone for a very long time. Harry is giving everyone all of the sunshine that they can handle. In fact, it may be too much sunshine, but Harry can't stop making it. Without Larry the Low and all that he brings, like his humidity, clouds, and rain, things become far too dry. Vegetation and crops are dying everywhere. A severe drought has begun. Week after week go by with no Larry and no sign of rain. Harry the High has created a massive drought of biblical proportions. People around the world are suffering terribly as they pray for rain. They need water to drink. They need water for food. They need water for life. Soon many people would begin to perish without the rain. People have now grown tired of Harry the High's constant sunshine and insufferable heat. Please let it rain, they pray. Mother Nature has now seen enough. She summons Harry the High and Larry the Low to her office for an emergency meeting. Okay, guys, what's the problem? She asked with authority. Silence fills the room. Both of them appear too scared to speak. Well, I want answers, Mother Nature thunders. Very softly and with a nervous stutter, Harry begins to speak. I'm very sorry, madam. This is all my fault. I can't stop making sunshine. I'm making everything way too dry and evaporating all of the water. All the plants are dying, and I am on the verge of killing everything. Mother Nature scolds Harry the High. Don't be silly, Harry. It is your job to bring sunshine. It's Larry the Low's job to bring relief in the form of moisture, clouds, and rain. Where have you been, Larry? Why have you not brought any rain and allowed this terrible drought to occur? Unfazed by the lecture, Larry pouts, exclaiming, I suck. I ruin pretty days and often destroy the things that people value. Nobody wants me around. Mother Nature is confused by Larry's attitude and his response. She asked Larry, why would you say such a thing? Harry finds the courage to speak up. Ma'am, I think I know what the problem is. After that last big storm, I became very angry over all of the destruction. I blame Larry for the people suffering. I told him that nobody liked him, that he should just get lost forever. Harry the High is very embarrassed over the hateful words he used towards Larry the Low. He never thought his words could have such a devastating effect. Mother Nature is deeply saddened as she speaks. Both of you listen very carefully to what I'm going to say. You are each created uniquely with different appearances, talents, and characteristics by design. What one can't do, the other one can. Working together as a team, we achieve a meteorological equilibrium which allows life to flourish and thrive. This perfect yet delicate balance can't work with just one of you. The entire planet needs both of you. Do you understand me? Larry's excited about what he's just heard. So I don't suck. I do have value. People need me too, he says with enthusiasm. Harry is really ashamed over what his hateful words have done and understands what is needed in this situation, an apology. Larry, I am so sorry for what I said. You are great. You are just as important as I am. We all understand that now. Please forgive me and be my friend again. Realizing that they're both equally important and certainly needed, they hug one another and apologize for their squabble. They promise to never forsake one another again. They agree to always work as a team in the future, bringing the world the weather it needs, even if it's not exactly what people always want. The end.
Thank you so much, Alan. I just want to say I love how some of these illustrations, they feel very much cinematic, almost like watching a children's television show.
Yeah,
So thank you for sharing this story with us and for giving us a chance to experience all these illustrations like this.
you're welcome.
Of course. Reading next today is Janice E. Collins. Janice lives and works on Long Island, New York. She's an alumna of Hofstra University in Uniondale, New York. When she's not working, she loves spending time with her two Labrador retrievers and reading a novel by her favorite mystery authors. Sydney Bean and the Missing Gloves is her first children's book that joins her love for dogs, cats, and mysteries. In Sydney Bean and the Missing Gloves, we join Sydney and Bean as they meet neighborhood friends and learn that bravery is not a trait one is born with, but a trait that can be grown. Again, I'm going to be screen sharing illustrations from Janice's book. So let's welcome Janice and take it away.
Hey, how are you? I'm going to read the first three chapters. First chapter, No More Being Alone. Sydney is a Labrador retriever who wants nothing more than to make her parents proud. She wants to be the dog they deserve and will love forever. After all, Labradors are known for their traits of loyalty, friendliness, and of course, bravery. Lately, Sydney feels she is not living up to the bravery trait. Sure, she can chase a hungry raccoon out of her yard or wrestle a determined possum looking for a tree to sleep in, but being home alone makes Sydney feel like a turtle without its shell, exposed and afraid. The house fills up with unfamiliar sounds like the loud banging and hissing noise coming from the dark, scary basement. Her mom tells her it's only the water pipes, but the noise makes Sydney tremble with fear every time she's alone. For Sydney, the hardest time to be left home alone is when it rains. Thunder and lightning explode and crash in the sky. These sounds are so terrifying to her that she chews and rips her parents' clothes to shreds. Afterwards, she buries the evidence in a hole in the backyard, hoping her parents will never find out about her cowardly deed. Today, her parents are home, so there is no room for fear. Sydney can't wait to find out which activity is planned for the day, like hiking in the woods, swimming on the beach, or maybe both. Right now, I have a job to do, Sydney mumbles with torn socks in her mouth. She glances around the backyard, making sure no one is around to witness the deed, then digs a small hole, drops the torn socks inside, and pours the dirt on top. I'm supposed to be brave, but I can't help being afraid when I'm left home alone. If my parents find out what I've done, they will not be proud of me. I know there are plenty of brave dogs they could have besides me, Sydney whispers as she lowers her head in shame. In the corner of her eye, she spies Monty, the nosy neighborhood junkyard cat, getting ready to pounce upon the fence. I hope you're not trying to cut through my yard, Sydney barks, approaching the dirty cat. How long have you been sitting there? Sydney asked with concern, but she was certain she saw nobody near her yard. Ah, long enough to see and hear everything. You know nothing gets past me here. I hope you're finished with your dig. Monty purrs with a sly grin as he jumps on the fence. Oh, no, you don't. Sydney growls until Monty jumps off the fence. Okay, don't get yourself in a tizzy. I'll walk around, Monty huffs. Sydney, we have a surprise for you, Sydney hears her mom say as she approaches with a small ball of white fur wiggling in her arms. Look, it's Bean, your new baby sister. She's a Labrador like you. Her mom moves the wiggling little pup toward Sydney. I don't need a sister, Sydney, she looks more like a vanilla bean than a full-bred Labrador, Sydney growls. Now, Sydney, we will have none of that. This is baby Bean's home, too, so you need to be a good older sister to her, her mom scolds. You'll see. She'll make things easier for you. No more being alone. Her mom pats Sydney on the head. I can't believe I have a forever home and a big sister. I promise I will make the best little sister ever, Bean squeals with delight. Why don't you both go play together before dinner? Sydney, show your sister around her new home. I need to move the couch to make room for both of your beds. Sydney hears her mom's commands, and despite her mixed feelings of sharing a home with a new puppy, nudges Bean to follow. This is not the activity I had in mind, Sydney huffs. I can't believe this is all my yard, the Bean yaps with excitement as she runs around. My yard, and I have rules, Sydney corrects as she chases after Bean. What do we have here? Monty leaps onto the fence. Wow, Bean stops in her tracks, her eyes wide. Are you a tiger? I can see where you might be confused. I do have a magnificent orange and white striped coat, Monty says, his chest puffed out with pride. I thought I told you to leave, Sydney barks at the cat. Do my eyes deceive me, or am I seeing a replacement puppy? She looks like a brave little one. Don't you agree, Sydney? Monty asked. I'm not replacing anyone. Sydney and I are sisters. Bean, with her eyes wide and her left ear in a twist, looks at Sydney for confirmation. Oh, rule number 1 of the yard, never trust what the cat says, Sydney instructs Bean while kicking her back paws on the ground, spraying dirt towards Monty. Okay, I'm really leaving this time, coughs the cat. I think it's time we go in. There's a storm coming, Sydney says while keeping her steady eye on the sky. Are you afraid? Bean asks with concern. Afraid? Sydney snaps, sounding shocked by the idea. The rain doesn't frighten me. I just don't think we should get wet on your first day. The pups feast on dinner, settle down for the night. Long and not long after, the sound of rumbling fills the sky. Bean pulls her bed closer to Sydney's bed. If it's okay with you, I'm not used to sleeping alone yet. Can I move my bed closer to yours? Asks Bean, sensing Sydney's distress. Sure, but only for tonight, Sydney says while peeking her head out of the blanket. With Bean laying close by, Sydney begins to feel less alone and less afraid, and while the sound of thunder and lightning roar in the distance, she falls fast asleep. Chapter 2, The Missing Gloves. The next morning, the pups are awakened by the sound of their mother's cries. Something important has gone missing. I know I put my gloves right here on the table. My delicate pearl gloves with a gift from my mother. They're irreplaceable. There was thunder and lightning last night. I fear that Cindy may have taken them, their mother says aghast. Sydney's head and ears go down. Bean, there's something I should tell you. I have a little, or maybe a big problem with shredding clothes and burying them when afraid, but I didn't do this. Don't worry, Sydney. I know you had nothing to do with this. We were together all night, says the Bean. Bean, I need to check all my old digging spots to make sure that the gloves are not there. I need to do this on my own to make sure you're not dragged into my mess, Sydney sheepishly tells Bean. I want to make this right. I want our parents to believe in me again. Together we'll find the gloves and you will be cleared from blame, Bean yaps with conviction. Bean, why would you want to help me? You might be implicated in their disappearance, Sydney says with concern. You're my big sister. I won't let you down, the Bean confirms. Bean, I am used to being on my own. I was worried that sharing my home with a new puppy would change things for me, but right now, it feels good having you here to support me. I'll work fast and come find you. Maybe we can play ball together, Sydney said with a warmth in her voice. The pups race outside to their backyard to begin the search for their mom's missing gloves. The idea that she is thought to be the culprit weighs heavily on Sydney's mind. Alone in her search, Bean hears whispering near the yard's fence. But being equipped with Labrador hearing, it's all crystal clear. She sticks her face into the fence slot, and her eyes widen in surprise as the tiny squirrel and a baby redbird stunned to be found. Hi, I'm Bean. This is my yard. Have you seen a pair of gloves? Hello, Bean. The tiny squirrel steps forward. You seem nice, but our parents told us never talk to the dogs and never go into a yard with dogs in it. But my red cardinal friend's first baby feathers blew into your yard. He would like to give it to his mom, the tiny squirrel finishes and steps back. If I'm in the yard, you are always welcome, so please come and get your friend's feather. Bean steps back to let the squirrel in. The tiny squirrel steps slowly in, looking in all directions. Be careful, he hears the baby red bird warn. Spotting the red feather, the tiny squirrel picks it up and runs quickly back. What's this about gloves? I don't think Labradors need them with all that fur, the tiny squirrel remarks. My mom lost a pair of important gloves, and I was hoping, since you have the ability to see in from high places, that you might have seen them, says Bean with hope. Well, we might have. What do these gloves you search for look like? The tiny squirrel and redbird say in unison. Bean, realizing she never thought to ask what the gloves look like and is only armed with the knowledge that they are important to her mom, begins to understand that finding these gloves will not be easy, but she's determined to clear Sydney's name. Bean scratches her head. I don't know, but they must be beautiful if losing them makes my mom sad. Can you help me find them? Begs Bean. Of course, you helped us, the two say in unison. Have you lost something, little puppy? Monty, the cat, shrinks along the fence. Adding a touch of concern in his voice, he adds, Is there something I can help you with, my friend? Oh, Sydney told me not to trust you, says Bean, while taking a step back. Oh, that's Sydney. What a kidder. I come from exquisite lineage of orange-striped cats known for our cunning and cleverness. Now, if I was like my cousin, the black cat, I can see you being concerned about crossing my path, but you should have no worries about me, purrs the cat. Beguiled by the cat, Bean takes a step forward to listen. I can see you and I are going to be good friends. Monty licks his dirty paw and smiles his crooked smile at Bean. Did Sydney happen to mention that I live at the biggest lost and found yard in the neighborhood? Anything lost will find its way to my yard, so perhaps I can help. Monty purrs, rubbing his front paws together in anticipation of tricking Bean into his trap. Really? If you have them, it'll help Sydney get out of trouble. Would you please look? Says the Bean with hope. Of course, but the yard is so big, I can't do it on my own. You must join me in the search. Monty attempts a smile, innocent smile, but his crooked grin keeps popping up. Well, my other friends are looking for them too, Bean assures the cat. The baby redbird flaps around Bean's head, chirping loudly and shredding the last of its newborn feathers with fear in its eyes. No, Bean, let us help you. I think he's excited to be helping, Bean explains to the cat. Yes, he looks delicious, the cat says while licking his lips as his eyes follow the tiny redbird's every move. Huh? Says the Bean as his head tilts in confusion. I meant delightful. If you want to leave the important task to the tiny squirrel and the delightful baby redbird, both not any older than you, I guess Sydney's problem can't be that important to you. Monty smiles widen as he feels the moment of victory coming. You're right. I need to help Sydney. I will go with you. Even though I am breaking rule number 1 of the yard, not listening to the cat, I think I need to risk it to help Sydney. But I need to be back before dinner. Bean slides under the fence. It never occurs to Bean that she never told the cat what they were looking for. Chapter 3. The Search. The day grows long, Sydney dirty and tired from digging up all her old hiding holes without finding the missing gloves, sits back and realizes she hasn't seen Bean in quite some time. Sydney hurries to the other side of the yard and sees no sign of Bean. Feeling a sense of panic wash over her, she barks, Bean, where are you? She's left to help you, a little voice is heard over the fence. She left before we could stop her, another little voice says. Sydney looks over the fence to see the voices belong to and sees a tiny squirrel and a baby redbird sitting on his back. Why did she leave the yard? Sydney asked with concern. The cat told Bean that whatever goes missing ends up in the junkyard, the two say in unison. I think he wanted to eat me, said the little baby redbird as he trembles. The cat, I should have known. I should have never should have left Bean alone. This is all my fault. Bean only wants to be my little sister, and right now I feel like a horrible big sister. I need to make this right and find her. Sydney lowers her head in despair. Please help me find Bean. If she went with the cat, she could be in real danger, begs Sydney. Bean is our friend, and so we will be happy to join you. But we need to hurry since there's a storm coming, the tiny squirrel squeaks. The baby redbird shakes his head in agreement. Okay, team, let's go and rescue Bean, Sydney says bravely. Without glancing up at the darkening sky, she jumps over the fence with the tiny squirrel and the baby redbird following close behind. Meanwhile, Bean follows closely behind Monty, who is jumping from fence line to fence line. Bean, with her little legs struggling to keep up, happens upon a dog park. Hey, little one, aren't you Sydney's new baby sister, Bean? You should not be out on the yard yet, and you should not be hanging out with that cat, a large German shepherd with a canine police bandana states with authority. Bean stops suddenly in her tracks. Are you a real police dog? Do you need help getting out of that gate? Bean, with her eyes wide and her ear twisted, asked with concern. Yes, I'm a real police dog. Sergeant Riley retired at your service, the shepherd states with pride. This is a dog park where all pets in the neighborhood come to mingle. We are all here voluntarily. Now, I need to get you home and back away from that cat. I'm on an important mission. Sydney's in trouble and I need to help her. So I can't go home until I find my mom's missing gloves. And Mr. Monty knows where they are, Bean says with certainty. The only thing that cat knows is trouble, and I should know. I used to sniff out trouble back on the force, Sergeant Rowley barks back. Bean notices Monty is way ahead. I need to go. It was nice to meet you, Bean yaps back and runs with all her might. A pup in a hurry winds up chasing its own tail. It takes real teamwork to go on a successful mission, Sergeant Riley shouts back, shaking his head. Sergeant Riley, being nobody's fool, knows something is not quite right. The sergeant ponders. Sydney's in trouble. Bean is out and about with that cat. Something indeed is wrong in that neighborhood. And at that moment, Sergeant Riley knew exactly what he needed to do.
Thank you so much, Janice. And I think the most charming thing about this story is all the different characters and how they have their own little personalities. So it's wonderful to be able to see those brought to life here.
Yep.
So our final reader for today is AnneMarie Mazotti Gouveia. AnneMarie was born and raised in California. She has a vivid imagination and loves writing magical adventure stories that take place in strange lands. She's passionate about reading, art, and family. She's the youngest of 7 children, the mother of 4 children, and a grandmother. She's traveled throughout Europe and has lived in Germany, Washington, and Kansas. A former high-tech executive with a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, she's a geek at heart who enjoys mentoring others and trips to Disneyland. AnneMarie lives in Northern California with her husband and 2 mischievous cats. Brave Falls, the book we'll be hearing her read from today, is the 3rd book in her award-winning Drifter's Realm book series. She's a member of SBCWI and the Mount Diablo CWC. As I mentioned, we'll be hearing AnneMarie read from Brave Falls, Drifter's Realm Book 3, where she continues the compelling story of survival and the boundless power of friendship and family. This reading opens with another illustration that I'm excited to share with you. So with that, we'll hear more now from AnneMarie herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm reading from Chapter 1, The Cavern Under the Desolation Mountains. I am the sorcerer. Rose's proclamation from last night echoed through her head as she stood alone at the center of the underground cavern, her heart pounding in her chest. A pale blue mist from her backpack swirled wildly around her body. How will I do this? Her piercing green eyes bored into the darkness. Fear gnawed at her as she took a deep breath, biting her fingernail. Feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, she clenched her fists tightly at her sides and exhaled. Her dark hair, streaked with pale blue, floated across her face. You are not alone. Her father's voice reverberated inside her head. Wobbling as another earthquake shook the cavern, she gasped into the darkness. I have to stop Zane before it's too late. Cool water from one of the dozen stalactites hanging from the cavern ceiling dripped on her faded leather boots as she scuffed the ground. A pungent, earthy smell permeated the cavern, tickling her nose. Ro envied the laughing teenagers who sat on weather-worn boulders, talking and joking among the lit torches that littered the darkened cavern. She longed to sit with them, to be free from her destiny. Why had her parents chosen her to save Drifter's Realm? What if she wasn't as strong and powerful as everyone thought, she wondered. She sighed and closed her eyes as the events that unsettled her world came back to her. She recalled how her brother Ori had lain wounded underneath a grove of towering pine trees. He had unashamedly confessed that he tried to take her life-giver powers. And then he had revealed an absolute bombshell. Their father had meant for her to be a sorcerer and not him. She had never been meant to be a life-giver. She almost hated Ori for not telling her the truth weeks ago. How can I ever trust him again, she whispered, looking down at the ground as the images inside her head faded to black. Then the memory of the previous night blew her mind as she recalled how she stood in front of 200 runaway teenagers, holding the mirror tree over her head, its blazing yellow light filling the cavern. Theo, her 17-year-old brother, and her 12-year-old triplet siblings, Ori and Tora, had stood alongside her. The 4 of them were united in stopping the uprising and impending war. Hal, the 16-year-old fearless leader of the menace, had joined them and shouted, "Only the last 2 lines are left in the prophecy to solve," before the 5 of them had stood side by side and recited the ancient prophecy that bound their destinies together. 3 become one when you follow the sons and the daughters who know the way to breaking up the day. In the middle of the night, when the stars are alight, the uprising shall end when the bravest one bends. When the memory faded, she shook her head and kicked the white sorcerer's backpack across the cavern, watching it splash through a puddle. Despite the warmth of her brown woven pants and green wool sweater, she shivered as she sat on the ground with her hands in her lap, quieting her thoughts while the earth thrummed beneath her. She placed her palms face down on the ground, the sandy grit sticking to her fingers. The thrumming intensified as 1,000 heartbeats from Drifter's realm pulsed through her. From the unforgettable forest's wildflower meadows and sleeping giants' redwood trees, whose trunks were as wide as 10 people standing side by side and whose height touched the stars, to the gusty winds of the wandering plains. Every living thing is counting on me to save Drifter's realm, she sighed deeply. She steadied her heartbeat until the thrumming stopped. I am not a sorcerer. I am a life giver, like my father and his father before him, she whispered defiantly, pounding her fists on the ground. A few drops of water from the stalactites above her landed on her forehead. She swept the water away with the flick of her hand. The wetness tickled her face as the drops rolled onto the ground next to her. Rose stood up, pushed her hair behind her ears, and brushed the dirt off her damp clothes. Off in the distance, Theo and Hal's voices grew louder the nearer they came to where she stood, with her hands in her pockets, waiting. The plan. Despite the bats and crawling creatures, the secret cavern carved by water and time into the solid rock below the surface of the Desolation Mountains was a favorite hiding place for the menace, the outcast teenagers from Drifter's realm. The cavern's utter darkness, remoteness, and entrance's whereabouts made it the perfect hiding place. I can't wait to get out of here. When are we leaving for First City? Hal asked Theo and Ro, brushing sticky webs off his arm before he pulled a dangling web out of his straight black hair. And is it just me, or are there more spider webs in here the longer we stay in this gloomy place? Hal shook his hand violently, trying to fling the webs into the darkness. Why didn't you include me? What's going on? Ori demanded as he stepped out of the cavern shadows and walked up to Ro. His dark wavy hair brushed against his shoulder as he tapped his foot impatiently and narrowed his green eyes at Hal. Hey, little bro, no worries. I'll fill you in later, Theo murmured as he shifted his leopard-spotted tamer backpack higher up on his back. Nothing's going on, Hal blurted out, summoning moon-shaped fireworks into his hands from his chemist backpack. He tossed the fireworks in the air and lit them with the snap of his fingers. Besides, you can't help us. You don't have an obligation since you blew up your sorcerer's backpack trying to steal power from Ro. Hal taunted Ori as he juggled the fireworks. Trails of silver and white sparks circled them in the damp cavern air, lighting up the darkness and illuminating the rough rock surfaces that surrounded them on all sides. Look, Hal, you need to back off. Ro and Theo are my family, not yours, Ori said through clenched teeth. He brazenly stepped closer to Hal and knocked the spinning fireworks out of his hands. The fireworks somersaulted through the air and landed in a puddle on the ground. You forgot about your powerful stormcatcher sister. Isn't she also part of your family? Hal snapped. Ori's disdain for his estranged sister Tora was no secret. They had fought like cats and dogs ever since Ori had met Tora in the tunnels under First City. Butt out, Ori sneered as he stepped closer to Hal and jabbed his index finger into Hal's chest. You don't scare me, and you aren't one of us, the sons and daughters from the prophecy. You're just some kid helping our father finish what the prophecy meant for me and my brother and sisters to do. Hal stood silently as the seconds ticked by before he folded his arms across his chest and declared, I am as much a son of Drifter's Realm as you. And let's not forget what you've done. Your ridiculous shenanigans to steal Rose's life-giver powers could have killed her. I'm surprised your brother and sisters want anything to do with you. Hal unfolded his arms and waved his hands. The fireworks flew off the ground and circled Ori in a swirl of silver and white sparks that burned to the touch. Ori singed his fingers and then tripped and fell on his backside with a thud. Stop it, Rose shouted, reaching out to pull Ori off the ground as a pale blue mist flew out of her backpack and swirled wildly around Hal's fireworks, lifting them high above in a tiny tornado. The fireworks explosions boomed across the cavern as a brilliant waterfall of lights rained down on their heads, ending Hal and Ori's argument and sending a dozen bats flapping their wings noisily overhead, escaping to a quieter place in the cavern. He's just a chemist. How did Hal get the fireworks to fly off the ground like that? And how did Ro explode them like a waterfall? Ori stammered as Hal walked away, his laughter echoing off the cavern walls. What's going on with everyone's powers? Ori ranted, stamping his foot in a puddle and drenching his brown wool sweater, khaki pants, and leather shoes. What am I if I'm not a sorcerer? Look, Ori, we'll figure it out. Be patient, Theo reassured him, placing his hand on his little brother's shoulder. I've got this. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to Mia and see if she's found a way to gift you an obligation. Stay here with Ro. We're leaving soon, Theo said over his shoulder as he headed to the edge of the cavern where Mia sat leaning against the wall, reading a stack of books by torchlight. I'm really tired of people telling me what to do, Ori hissed as he stomped in the opposite direction to the bonfire where Tora sat alone on the ground, packing her Stormcatcher backpack. The bonfire flames ebbed lower and then higher as an unexpected draft of air whooshed through the cavern, illuminating the outline of Tora, who from far away looked exactly like Ro. Ro sighed deeply and hung her head as she watched Ori walk away. Ori acted like an impossible nincompoop sometimes, and Hal just egged him on. Why couldn't they get along? Couldn't they see how similar they were to each other? Reckless beyond reason, but brave to a fault. Ro kicked a loose rock out of her way, sending it hurling across the cavern into a 40-foot tall stalagmite as she walked to her sleeping area. She needed time to think. Nothing made any sense, starting with Ori's accusation that Hal had been betraying them by secretly sending messages to Zane about their hiding locations. And if it wasn't Hal, then who was doing it?
Thank you so much, AnneMarie, and especially for leaving us on this kind of open-ended question. So we have to get back into it. So at this time, before we can do that, we do have time for our audience Q&A. So if anyone has a question for one or more of our authors, go ahead and type those in the chat and I'll make sure they get asked. We've already got a couple of questions coming in. So this first one is for all three authors from Mary. What inspired you to write these stories? I'm thinking we could go in reading order to start with. So Alan, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure. There was lots of inspiration, and it's hard to pin down just one or two things, but definitely when, I look around at what our youth have to go through these days, they have so many challenges. And I often tell friends of mine when we were kids, when we went home, we were in a safe place, and kind of all the bullying or those kind of torments that kids might face at school ended. But with the internet and constant contact that these kids have today, there's a lot. It's more pervasive, I think, than even when we were children growing up. So I just wanted, to get a message out to let kids know, even if you may be a little different or you're unique in any kind of way, that's okay. That's how you were created, and that you should embrace it versus feeling bad about it. So a lot of the inspiration behind it is to help kids, obviously, that are struggling with those kind of things, but also wanted to introduce children to science. I mean, studies have shown over and over that kids that are exposed or learn science at a younger age do better in life generally as they progress. So if this can pique children's interest in science, I think that would also be beneficial.
Yeah, definitely this kind of multi-pronged approach, I think, is a necessary thing as we, like you said, we're encountering these issues that are very contemporary. So, we're dealing with them as they happen.
Right.
Now going to Janice, what about you? What inspired you to write your story? Janice, it looks like you are still muted.
I agree with Larry. There's a lot of the different aspects and that influenced. I guess mainly it was how the kids that used to interact with my dogs asking all these questions like, are they really sisters? Are they? So it just became where you started to talk about them, and then I just wound up telling little stories, and that's just wound up writing the book.
Yeah, it's like this really organic process from oral tradition to now the
Yeah,
written word. And
it's always
Anne-Marie,
helped.
yeah, definitely. And Anne-Marie, what about you? Especially, coming into the third installment in a series, where did the ideas continue to come from?
Well, it started with me wanting to write a fantasy adventure series where there's no technology in this world, and these kids live sort of honing their backpack skills. They all have different backpacks. So I sort of wanted to bring a story to light that's about family, friendship, trust, and overcoming conflict, overcoming obstacles, and learning how to work together, because that's what happens through all three books. But with the element of these kids are outside, they live in tree trunks, they live in caves, they live in forests. There's no technology, no cell phones, no iPads, nothing like that. So it's a true adventure story. And the idea started with just one tiny seed of a thought, which is if kids had backpacks and everything they had was in there, what kind of world could I build around that? And then that's how the whole thing began.
Yeah, so it's like this continued progression through these characters and their arcs, but it really just stems from this core inspiration right at the beginning and building on that from there. Kind of a similar question has come in, but this is specifically, again, for all three authors, specifically what inspired you to start writing for children? Janice, do you want to start us off with this one?
Sure, I guess. Am I on? Yeah, it was just when I had the two puppies and I had the kids come into the fence to meet them. They had so many questions, And I just, again, you just start to spin little stories with them, and then it just inspired me a bit that way. And I just said, something, I just feel I just felt that I had so much to give on that point. So I just started to write it down.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It just grows out of that
Yeah,
sense of giving.
kids have a lot of
Um,
questions.
yeah, they sure do. Um, and Anne-Marie, what about you? What was it that about writing for children that was interesting to you?
I like writing for an age group where they still believe anything is possible. And it's just such a sweet spot. And I just enjoy the fact that I can include illustrations, since there's illustrations in front of each of my chapters in each book. But yeah, there's just something super magical about that middle grade age group where they want to be challenged. They want to discover the world on their own. And at the same time, they still want to feel like anything can happen and that there is still good in the world, which we all believe there's still good in the world.
Yes, I think that's a great point of like there's so much more imagination and worlds to uncover and to dive into. And it's really refreshing to have that, almost like that palette to help with that. So I completely see where you're coming from on that point. And Alan, what about you? What was it about writing for children that specifically interested you?
Well, I agree with Anne-Marie and Janice in being able to influence or change kids and help them in a positive manner. But really, the idea came to me in a dream. The characters, the storyline, everything. I just dreamed it up. So after it was Harry the High and Larry the Low, obviously that was more suited for a children's type book versus a novel for adults. But so it kind of like chose me versus me choosing it, so to speak. But definitely the advantage of being able to make impression upon children, like I said earlier, letting them know that uniqueness is a gift and they're created that way and they should embrace it, as well as getting them interested in the field of science and pique that curiosity. All those things came into play for sure.
Yeah, again, it's really this these more open minds almost that are interested in more diverse and interesting stories, you could say. So this next question, again, for all three authors, this is a little bit different from Cindy. Lovely stories that keep you engaged, wanting to know what will happen next and how the stories will end. How have you all marketed your books? Anne-Marie, do you want to start us off with this one?
Yeah, so a lot of my marketing is just face to face. It's going to fairs, it's doing reading events like this, it's going into classrooms. My daughter-in-law is a teacher. It's donating books to places, to institutions that need books for young readers. And then it's just, being open to people asking me, would you be willing to do this podcast? Would you be willing to be interviewed? So it's not any one thing. It's really 1,000 little things that you do. And every day I try to do one thing towards pushing my book in the world, even if it's just reading a book another author wrote and providing them feedback.
Yeah, I love that stress on, it's these little things that build up over time because that's also something that just makes it more approachable, really. It's something that you can take at your own pace and figure out what works for you. Alan, what about you? How have you marketed this book?
Pretty much same thing as Anne Marie, and I found it really neat that she said she tries to do one thing, at least one thing a day to promote her book, because that's my goal too. Every day, at least do one thing, one activity of some kind. But I've done recently the Knox County Public Library sponsored a Readers Festival in downtown Knoxville, and I was fortunate enough to get a booth kind of last minute, and so we had a great day down there and made a lot of contacts with a lot of parents and children alike. And I do have scheduled like a reading at the YMCA here in Knoxville where they have 60 first graders through their summer program. So we're going to go in there and read the book and talk to them about weather and things like that. But just reading the book, do some stuff online, Instagram, obviously X. Never been on Facebook. I probably never will be, but just use the tools that I have. But I agree with AnneMarie, just one little thing every day, find something, even if it's just talking to somebody about, hey, I got a book out there, that kind of thing.
Yes, using the tools that are available to you. Another great thing to keep in mind that can make it more approachable, especially with such a huge feeling task. And closing us out on this one, Janice, how do you market your book?
The same exact, the exact same ways. Atmosphere also has helped a lot. I also have some reading events coming up. I have some summer camps that have invited me to come in to read, so I'm doing that. Book fairs. I just recently was at a book fair in Oyster Bay, New York, and it was great. So yeah, just you just got to keep trying to find different ways to get your name out there and your book out there. So it's not easy, but you just got to keep doing it.
Definitely a thing of chipping away over time, like we keep hearing. Okay, well, at this point, I just want to say that it was so great to hear all three of these books today and to see the illustrations as well. So I just want to say again, thank you so much to Alan, Janice, and AnneMarie for being generous with us today, sharing these books with us, and your thoughts in this Q&A. For everybody in the audience, thank you as well for joining us and for experiencing and celebrating these books with us. Don't forget, of course, that you can order Harry the High versus Larry the Low, Sydney Bean and the Missing Gloves, and Brave Falls, Drifter's Realm Book 3 from the links in the chat. I'm just going to put those all in the chat one more time so you don't have to kind of dig through that. But that's all there for you. Please also consider checking out atmospherepress.com to browse our new and forthcoming releases, sign up for our email newsletter, or submit a book manuscript of your own. You can submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com and just let us know that you attended today's event. So we'll look forward to hearing from you. But until then, that's it for today. So have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.